Hey, coaches. So I had a conversation this morning with a prospective client, someone who I guess friend requested me at some point on Facebook, and we had some interactions. And he also responded to a questionnaire that I recently um, sent out for coaches with questions on helping me decide the content of the coaching course that I'm creating, which is a course on how to create a thriving coaching practice for coaches. And so anyway, we just had a call, and I asked him a question. Well, I asked him several questions, and one of the question string was, are you absolutely clear that what you want is to have a thriving coaching practice? Absolutely, yes. Okay. Why don't you have one now? And his response was, you could summarize his response into what he said was his language was the perceived chasm. And I love that he said that, because it's so many coaches who are starting can relate to this. What he meant by the chasm is the space that he perceives there to be between where he is right now in this second in his life and what all the distance that would need to be covered in order to him for him to be succeeding at coaching, talking really succeeding. So his perception is that distance is large enough to be referred to as a chasm, and I find that to be true for a lot of. It was true as hell for me, for sure. And we all learn that, whether we're coaches or not, that that it's going to be hard, that it's going to take a long time. All these limiting beliefs, we get very well educated on them. So I asked him to elaborate upon the chasm. Like, let's say, like, have it not be metaphorical. What actually is this chasm of which you speak? And fundamentally, his response was all about how, how the center square. Like, how is it going to work? How am I going to get? Where are my clients going to come from? How am I going to enroll them? How's it going to look? What am I going to coach them on? Where am I going to do my coaching sessions? And all the questions that are obvious and normal and natural, but that are being thought of as obstacles. Right, so it's perceived like a chasm, as if I'm standing on the south rim of the Grand Canyon and looking off across this distance, this massive divide, over to the north rim, and going, how would I ever get there? And there's a way. There's lots of ways. There's millions of ways, but it requires moving. It requires getting on the Kaibab Trail, for example, and taking a step, go, like a move, like go, and. And I like to say, like, this mantra, the mantra is actually the answer to the question, well, how do I really get started, though? The simple answer is move towards. Move towards. The how that's stopping so many people from getting started, and by the way, this is not limited to just coaches starting a thriving coaching practice. This is like going to be all of our clients, right? Almost all of our clients come up against the how obstacle in some form or fashion in their lives, in the process of going for something that they want in their life. And we all have learned limiting beliefs about the scarcity or unavailability of these desires. So we always everyone's coming up against the how obstacle. And I really like to say that the how is in the what. In other words, the inherent within your desires, which is the what, are the mechanics for their own fulfillment. All right, and let me explain that with a short story, a story that I tell all the time about my nephew Benny and my car keys. And the short version of that story is that I'm watching a football game at my sister's house back in the day when she had one child, Benny, who was an infant, wasn't even walking yet. I had thrown my car keys up on top of a shelf, and my sister said, "Hey, Benny's coming in the room. Chris, keep your eye on him." I said, "Yeah, I got him." So he's over there. My car keys are over there, but I'm not even paying attention to that. But apparently he is, because I think obviously he saw them. And he started crawling across the room. Now these keys are like 5 feet off the ground. He'd be like 2 feet standing, and he can't even walk. So they are literally out of reach. This object is out of reach. Yet he started moving towards them without hesitation. He saw a thing in the world that was interesting, and he starts crawling towards that without any reluctance, without any hesitation, without any self-examination. Like he didn't ask how. He didn't come up against the how obstacle. He hasn't learned to do that yet. We have. He probably has now. He's 21, but we have to learn that, right? We learn that we can't continue to proceed without knowing how it's going to work. So he had no questions about how would I ever pull that off. He didn't have these inquiries. He's simply moving towards, and I'm watching him because he's getting closer and closer to a brick fireplace, and I don't want him hit his tooth. So he gets over there, and I'm thinking, what are you up to, man? What is it that you're looking for? And he's looking up, and he's making noises, and I realize, it must be that. I get up off my ass, get out of the chair, grab the keys, put them on the floor, and he manifested his desire with virtual, effortless ease. I did all the work. So I was the mechanics. In this example, I am the how. I am the answer to how am I going to get them. Well, Chris gets off his butt and hands them to him. And he couldn't have ever predicted that. And he never needed to even go to the effort of predicting it or even considering it. He simply moved in the direction of and activated the mechanics that are already inherent within his desire, right? And I got up and gave him what he wanted. I was the how. And you may ask, well, yeah, okay, but what if you weren't in the room? Well, then he wouldn't have gotten them, and he would have moved on to the next thing. And he wouldn't have interpreted that as failure, which is another conversation, not interpreting results as failure, but simply as results. So all that being said, the how's and the what, then the next question is, okay, so if the how's already in the what, and I don't have to worry about how, all the details of how my practice is going to unfold, then let's talk about seriously what are some of the starting points, or what's this moving towards? What's it going to look like? Well, 5 things. The first step is deciding, getting all in, not having it be a goal, not having it be something you're trying to do, not having it, not working on it. No, that's all weak. Is deciding I'm having a thriving practice. That's critical. And you got to make that decision multiple times a day, every day, until it's all real. And that's step 1. The second is just set a fee. If you're at a point where if you are one of the coaches who is or is at the point where you're really wanting to have a practice, and maybe you've done a little bit, or maybe you haven't actually had anybody pay you yet, just pick a fee. You can change it at any time. You can change it at 5:30 tonight, or you could go back. And that's one of the beauties of being a coach and entrepreneur business for yourself is you're the boss and you can make the decisions. But just pick a fee, right? And you can experiment with these later. So you're ready to say to someone who you're going to be communicating with when they say, so what's it take? And you say, it's going to take $3,000 for 3 months and we'll meet X number of hours, for example. All right, so step 1 is deciding. Step 2 is set a fee. Step 3 is slowing down in your life and observing whose paths you're crossing, because you can reasonably assume that I'd say 85%, maybe more, of people whose paths you cross could really may need your help in achieving the things that they want in their lives. And I would say 100% of people whose paths you cross could use it. A lot of people that I coach, they don't need coaching. I work with all these professional athletes. They don't need it. They want it. They want it because it helps them be better. So that's cool. But you can assume statistically, based on our reports, Gallup poll data on people's life and career satisfaction, the reports are so terribly low that 84% of Americans consistently over the last 30 years report disliking their careers, being dissatisfied with their lives as a consequence. So slow down and hear these people, hear what they're saying, listen deeply, right? And operate from the assumption that this is a person that you could serve. This is a person that needs your help but might not even know how to ask for that. And then the fourth step is actually make a list. Is sit down and make a list of who are the people in the world, whether I know them or not, that I know that I could serve. And then the last step is get them in. Do some coaching with them. Invite them. Give them a call. Send them a message. Something. Get in touch with them and say, hey, I was just thinking about you. And you made it onto my short list of people. You may not even know. I'm coaching now. You probably didn't even know that. Yeah, I'm a coach. So I've been thinking about you, and you made my short list of people that I thought maybe I could serve. I wanted to, check in with you on that. One day I wanted to, get with you and have a conversation about that, and then invite them into a coaching call, invite them into a coaching session, get them in, get a flavor, and that's how it gets started. So decide, set a fee, Slow down. Who can I serve? Invite them in. Get them in. All right. Experiment with that. Love to hear your comments as always. And I'll talk to you soon.